The Downscaling Chronicles is on life support, with only 3 more episodes planned. But I'm prolonging the inevitable to feature a scaler that was right under our noses. Will it be a hidden gem, or just scraping the bottom of the barrel? Let's find out. This is the XRGB-3. Made by Micomsoft in 2008, this upscaler was once a premium, if not definitive way to play retro consoles on a flat panel display. As the landscape for upscalers evolved, many upgraded to the XRGB-mini Framemeister, an OSSC, or one of the RetroTinks offerings. But CRT gamers still holding onto the XRGB-3 may be surprised to learn that it does indeed downscale. I first learnt of this when I looked further into some legacy scalers and found that later firmwares had a low resolution output of 320 by 240. Through mutual Discord servers, I was put in touch with a helpful XRGB3 owner in the US, and they verified that downscaling worked from a 480p source. So I bought their unit and had it shipped over. To get HDMI sources into the XRGB3, I'm using an HDMI to VGA DAC, and for component input, a D terminal to RCA. And for the output, I'm passively combining RGB HV into RGBs with the Aliexpress VGA to Megadrive 2 dongle. My unit came with the English firmware 2.5, and to access the low resolution output, connect the output to something that'll display at least 31 kHz by VGA, select FPGA B0 mode in the advanced menu, and power cycle to enable. Then select the 320 by 240 resolution and you're good to go. The XRGB3 retains all settings before it's powered off, so you'll not need to select the resolution again, though it doesn't have multiple slots for presets. For the lowest lag, turn on VSync lock and the drawing method to field. This second option only affects interlaced video, so no biggie if it's left on frame for progressive sources. There's unfortunately no 1080p input, but with these settings, downscaling 720, 480p, and 480i to 240p costs just a bee's dick over 1 frame.
Not too shabby.
On the XRGB3 Shmups thread, it received no praise for its ability to downscale, apparently not on par with the Extron Emotia. And if certain settings aren't optimized, then I wholeheartedly agree. But tweak a few menu items and you'll get some unique results. On this test pattern, take note of the horizontal lines running along the sides like a ladder, which are decimated at broad regular intervals, which during gameplay causes vertical shimmer as well as scaling bumps. Now see that there's also missing vertical lines across the top and bottom of the screen. That's because the XRGB3 is also decimating the horizontal pixels to squeeze it down to 320 wide. To resurrect some of the vertical and horizontal resolution, there's a low pass filter which magically reveals most of the missing lines. There's some blur that comes with the filter, but it's essential to rid of the god-awful shimmer. The low pass filter only barely softens the vertical shimmer in pixel art games like Jet Rider, producing results inferior to that of a line blending downscaler like the Ultracade UVC. As for the broad vertical bumps, they can be ironed out using the X-even scale option in the pixel mapping menu, which precisely scales the video but overscans the picture. I'd probably not use this feature unless the vertical bumps are simply unbearable, as you risk sacrificing crucial gameplay elements in the playing field, such as the main character himself. There's picture adjustment options within the screen menu, but unfortunately doesn't help to shrink the image when the pixel mapping overscans, and instead just wraps the horizontal scale back around. So if you can overlook the scaling bumps with pixel mapping turned off, the screen options are otherwise fairly robust for HV size and centering within a predefined window. The vertical shift option moves the entire source video to help with perfect decimation of line doubled content, and also reading some larger text. Well, most text. After shifting the vertical pixels, a separate output vertical position option moves the post-processed image, so you can center the screen without impacting the scaling. Aspect ratio purists can rejoice with the 16:9 option, which windows the video within a 4:3 frame, just like the OSSC Pro. Pretty neat. So with some settings optimized, with the low pass filter on and pixel mapping turned off, let's see if it's in fact worse than the Extron Emotia. We know the Super Emotia blends adjacent fields, and that the OSSC Pro decimates each alternating line. And with the XRGB-3 also decimating with a low pass filter, you'd hope to get best of both worlds. But that's unfortunately not the case, as there's no escaping the harsh pixel decimation in both axes on the XRGB-3. At least it has one up on the Extron Emotia, which has reduced color depth and color banding. The XRGB-3's low resolution appearance is way more offensive up close versus sitting at a reasonable distance to the CRT, and somewhat tolerable once there's motion and especially fast-paced action. Typically, a line decimator can have a jarring stare effect on 3D games versus an overall smoother appearance with a line averaging scaler. The XRGB-3's appearance definitely errs more on the side of decimating, but thanks to the low pass filter, there's overall less stepping on linear detail. 3D games don't necessarily need the overscanning pixel mapping option, as broad vertical bumps mostly go unnoticed in these colorful and complex environments. A 480i output would be great in downscaling this type of content, but the low pass filter makes it much more acceptable, and it's a feature that I hope we could see implemented on other scalers. I played with some of the picture settings like sharpness to see if it would clean up the horizontal detail, but anything over, say, a level of 10 just resulted in haloing. Otherwise, some of the other picture options like brightness came in handy to make the colors really pop and brighten darker scenes. Within the Screen Plus menu is a PSP setting. Wonder what that's for? As instructed in the wiki, I set the PSP Go to progressive and connected the component output via the D terminal, but when you turn on the PSP mode, it scans at a much higher rate than my CRT can handle. And I'm surely missing something, as it definitely worked when I was piping the Time Sleuth's video through the XRGB-3. So is there any saving grace for the PSP within the other menu options? Sadly no. The horizontal stretch can only go so far, and even the pixel mapping's XEvert option, which overscanned all other content, leaves a lot of bare phosphors. Which brings me to my next disappointment, classic consoles. The SNES Mini outputs skinny 720p HDMI, however the XRGB-3 is also inadequate to fully stretch to each side of the CRT. And Artemio's trenchcoat guy looks like he's in need of a meal. Which leads me to the XRGB-3's biggest letdown, 720p input. Yeah, it can downscale from 720, but it's significantly blurrier than a 480p input. Having the low resolution option also brings 24 kHz output of 640 by 400, a little higher spec than the Ultracade UVC and Mimogenius 2's 384p. But mid-resolution suffers from horizontal underscan even when maxing out the horizontal width. Tri-Sync arcade cab owners honestly aren't missing out on anything of value, as the decimation is nothing like the Ultracade UVC's line-blended 24 kHz output, and is instead much closer to the Mimogenius 2's jagged decimation with scaling bumps and all. And even in 24 kHz mode, a 720p import still has horizontal underscan, along with the beer goggle filter. If I were to grade the XRGB-3 as a downscaler, well, it has relatively low lag, but taking into account that it has no 480i output, can downscale from 720p, though blurry, has an acceptable, though not exceptional picture, and has HV image controls, yet not fully robust, it gets a 6.8 out of 10. All in all, the XRGB-3 is a quirky downscaler. Some of its major shortcomings are largely niche scenarios that most won't encounter anyway. It's a shame that downscaling 720p looks ultra blurry, but on the other hand, if you stick with the main scenario of 480p to 240p with the low pass filter and some vertical shifting, the results are satisfactory but not ideal. It's far from the best, but definitely ain't the worst. If you've got an XRGB-3 and looking for a downscaler, and that can't seriously be too many people, see for yourselves if its unique 240p output is to your liking. Thanks all for watching, and happy gaming.